Coming in, flex. I just wanna win, LABB, who we running with, 2233, I'm on 10 again, state your name.
Exciting. After a long time, all together again, right?
Finally.
In person.
Yes, after too much time on Zoom.
Way too much time. If I don't have another meeting on Zoom, it'll be one too many.
Right. So we have somebody new here to the table, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with y'all today.
Who are you?
Who are you?
We're getting right to the existential question. Who are you?
Rwenshaun Miller.
Rwenshaun Miller. Okay, tell us about you.
Psychotherapist based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I do a lot of work with COCCI when it comes down to addressing mental health and IBD disorders and being able to tie those things together, but then also understanding how the mind and the body all works together. And us being able to address those things in various aspects is very important. And it's essential for us. So I'm excited to be here to talk about it today.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah.
I think what's really unique and awesome about us getting together this time is that we are at a table. And even just culturally, we always talk about like building your own table and just having your own table. And if they don't give you a seat or no one gives you a seat at their table, you build your own table. And we've done that through our organizations, through ABGH and through COCCI. And Tyler, your friendship and your partnership has been integral to us being able to do this.
Oh, no, it's a beautiful thing to be able to kind of have these conversations. I know that. A lot of my journey started with being able to have these conversations firsthand. So I think rather than waiting for it to get to its worst to have them, let's set the table, let's have it now. Because hopefully we can prevent other people from getting to that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think, while we're all together and in person, there are things that we wanted to kind of dive deeper into that we didn't really get to do those other times. And I think now that we have this more intimate setting, it makes it that much easier. So, a lot of what I see and what I think people do struggle with, and I think even as a physician, kind of bringing that topic to the forefront can be a little bit challenging, is mental health. And I think it's something that is oftentimes overlooked, particularly when you're so busy in the office talking about bowel movements and talking about pain and medications and all that kind of stuff, side effects. It's hard to talk about something that really is an overarching theme and touches everything, as you well know. And so, of course. I just want to kind of bring to the center of the table the idea of how do we talk about mental health, and even in the office setting, or how do we bring it to, to light in such a way that is not dismissive, but also is very, it's very obvious that as not a mental health professional, I can say, what are you feeling? How does this impact your disease? Like, how do we begin those conversations in such a limited amount of time?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things is just understanding what mental health looks like for each and every one of us. Not even just with someone that's dealing with a physical disease, but then also just in regular life. Me and Tyler was talking about earlier what it means to be Black in America, and how that impacts us mentally, and how that plays a large role. So even just being able to acknowledge that mental health challenges are common among us, is also, it looks different for us in different ways.
Yeah. But what, do you feel like that there's a stigma when we're talking about mental health and Black populations and Black men specifically?
I feel like we've gotten better at being able to address the fact that we may not be well, but we still struggle with what to do after the fact. There
That's
is
big.
still a stigma around appearing or seeming weak. And addressing that something may be wrong, but you just got to push through it and power through and pull yourself up by your
Yes.
bootstraps and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And very clearly that's not working. And I think that's where you see a lot of times the lack of mental health awareness and also resources will meet the physical disease, and it will start to manifest in a lot of ways in the body because it's crying out for help in some way. So I think the work that we still have to continue to do is to take away the stigma from seeking out the resources. Most Black men that I talk to can address the fact that something's wrong.
Right.
It's just getting them to pick up the phone and call a therapist. That's the hard part.
Right.
That part we're still trying to get ourselves around.
And I think even to add to that, understanding that even if they can address it, they may not even have the words for it.
Right.
They don't know how to describe what's really going on. They just, I just don't feel good.
Yeah.
Or,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
something's just not right. And us being able to decode what that actually means for the individual at that particular time is important.
For sure. For sure. This is going to be so full, I can already tell, but I want to dial it back a little bit. You know what we didn't get the opportunity to do was actually get caught up on you, Tyler. What have you been doing actually since
Since we saw you last
since we
year
saw
ago.
you last year? We're like diving in. I'm like, oh, this is about to be so deep, but let me dial it back and soften a little bit. Give us a update. You've been winning awards. We've
it's
been
been
seeing you
been a
rapping.
breakneck
I mean,
year.
it's been a lot.
It's been a breakneck year. Yeah, it's moved very quickly. You know, my show has seen a lot of success and people who responded well to it.
Yes.
You know, this year we were able to kind
What's
of.
your show?
I'm currently on strike. So y'all know what the show is.
We do.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
We do.
But yeah, we've had an opportunity to really, you know, I guess reap some of the benefits from kind of putting the product out and see not just how the audience responds to it, but how the industry has also responded to it as well. It's been a really beautiful year. With that, it has also been a very busy year. It's been a lot too, I think, as you know, every time, I think everyone in life, I guess you kind of level up in a way and you reach this kind of new mountaintop.
Yes.
You realize that there's a number of things that come with that as well. So as it's been wonderful and kind of everything that you ever hoped for, it's also been challenging in ways as well. Trying to keep up really with just your own pace, keep up with your own life and then maintain your own sense of self in the midst of it.
Right.
I think it was very easy to allow my mental and physical health to fall by the wayside
Right.
as everything got fast.
Right.
And then you start to realize that you feel things and you're like, I'm not as on top of this as I used to be.
Right.
So it's as beautiful as it's been, it can also be a challenge to stay grounded and in routine in the midst of that.
Yeah.
And that's what is, I think, kind of nice about it, is the reminding of the humanness.
Right.
There's always this commonality between
Right.
all of us, regardless of where you are and what you're going through at the time. We all have that physical aspect that brings you right back down. And that's been interesting to balance. Yeah,
Now,
for sure.
where are you located in the world? Because you said you've been
Depends on
traveling.
the day. Right now, I'm between New York and LA.
Okay.
You know, it feels like 6 months and 6 months, but
Right.
then that can be broken up
Right.
into, you know, a week here, a week there, 2 weeks here, maybe a month. I think from January to, I want to say January to June, the longest I was in one location was 3 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a lot of bouncing around, which again also makes that a little difficult.
Yes.
Like traveling
Yes.
with medications that need to stay at a
Yes.
certain temperature,
Right.
and like,
Yes.
Right.
how do I make
Yes.
sure that's there and what I
Yes.
do here and all
Yes.
of that. So it's been a lot of movement and a lot of kind of logistics to make sure that it can stay controlled. But it's what comes with the territory.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Dr. B and Rwenshaun, Tyler said a lot just in that. And so I'm directing this back to both of you because medication at different temperatures, being bi-coastal as a physician, like managing patient side that's bi-coastal, going from both sides, 6 months here, 6 months there, hopefully, but he's like, I'm only in one place for 3 weeks maybe. Resources, time zones, appointments. I'm in one time zone and they're like, yes, we can make you an appointment in 4 months.
Right, right.
This is a lot just for somebody who's stable. And you as a physician, you're trying to get your patients in. I'm just thinking you just said so much in that. And that's not even talking about the state of Black men's mental health. That's just inpatient and provider mental health. Like, I want to hear your thoughts just on that.
I mean, it sounds overwhelming. And I feel like the thing that I hear is the need for support, right? And people's, support can manifest in different ways. But I think that that's something that a lot of people lack, and that does require resources. It does require people who care, right? It does require people who are on top of you when you can't be, or when people have different priorities than you do, right? But I think that that's why, when I see somebody, whether it's when they're first diagnosed or when they're really struggling, and not even just IBD, right? It's not limited to that. No. Is that it's good to have their family come in. Like, it's good to have their loved ones come in. And I know some people do shy away from that, and it does sometimes make the visit longer. But I think you get a lot of depth there. You get a sense of what people's home life is like. You get a sense of what their day-to-day is like. Because, even people who are the best resourced and have a lot of support things can be quite overwhelming, just like you said. And because there's that tie there, that brain gut tie there, like anything that's happening up here is absolutely going to affect what's happening in your gut. So that is a lot.
Yes.
And I'm always, every time I see it, I say, "Oh my gosh, Tyler!" But and there's been a lot of that because you have been so busy. But then, I always think, just knowing the other side, like, wow. Like, that is,
Busy is also how we got here.
Exactly. Yes,
for sure.
And there was a time where you didn't, you're like, I can't slow down. Like, it's not possible. But sometimes, unfortunately, your body, forces you to do that.
Right.
One of the things that you mentioned is about, the strike. How does that play a role on your mental well-being? And then how you also manage your physical illness as well.
Thankfully, for me, this isn't my first strike. I was around for the writer's strike of 2008, which also was very difficult. So I do have this sense of context where it's like, I know we will make it to the other side of this. We will be fine. However, there is still, the 100% stop of funds that happens at some point. And then the not just looking out for your current situation, but that of others around you who may not have been as stable as well. So it is difficult. I think I spend now more time, on the phone with the number of therapists that I talk to at any given time, just sometimes to vent it out, but then also to seek resources into how to deal and cope with it. Because I think, one of the things that happens is I'm hearing the stories of other actors and what they're going through. How do I not take that on? How do I not empathize to the point where I'm carrying that with me? Because I won't carry it here. I'll carry it in my gut more than likely. That's where it's gonna manifest. And there's so much that's unknown. I think where IBD comes in for me, that is a blessing, is that it forces me to have those conversations, or else I will physically feel it. I know what's gonna happen. But it is a juggling game. There is no one right way to do it. I kind of have to take it day by day, depending on how I'm feeling, and leave grace for that feeling as well. But it's definitely through resources. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without having other people to be able to lean on for support, outside of family, outside of even coworkers, of like people who are literally mental health professionals. Like, at some point, there's this joke that was around for a long time, that people need to seek professional help. That would be a joke that you hear as a punchline. There's a reason why it's professional, because a lot of us are dealing with issues that need help from a professional, and I realized that at one point. So now it becomes more than just friends coming together to talk about what's going on. I'm seeking resources. I'm seeking knowledge. I'm seeking, how do I handle this in a way that I'll be equipped to not take the backlash physically. So it's been a number of those things. But I think the first one is actually just reaching out for mental health resources.
Sorry, I got another question.
Okay.
When it comes down to you thinking about it from the lens of us being Black men and we were groomed to not ask for help or not seek those particular resources, what was your breaking point to be able to be like, man, I got to get a therapist?
2016, 2017. I didn't have a long-term relationship with a therapist until then. It wasn't until I found myself in Dr. Balzora's office and my body was shutting down. All I knew was go. That was it. No matter what you're feeling, you keep going. You don't stop. Until I got stopped. Very, very aggressively. I got sat down. And at first, it's one of those things where you think, oh, I'll just have surgery and it'll be fine. I'll be back on my feet, whatever. But then I started noticing that these symptoms there was a pattern. What would happen here, a few weeks later, I would see here. And I remember having a conversation with you and then with another GI on the West Coast, like, how do I make sure I'm not back in the hospital again?
This whole thing we're doing right
now. And there was a conversation about medication, and there was a conversation about, but it was also like, it's up here.
Right.
If you don't fix this, it's gonna keep happening. And that's what got me serious about it. It was self-preservation. It was being selfish.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually, a lot of the Black men in my life, I tell them, be selfish, please, and take care of you.
We never hear that.
We take care of you, because nobody else is. You got to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're taught that selfish is always a bad word.
No.
Right.
It's really not.
That's what we're taught. Selfish is a bad word. And we're taught that because every time someone is called selfish, it's in the context of when they're doing something bad.
Right.
Not when they're being self-aware and when they're being self-preservative and when they're taking care of themselves. But when you are being self-preservative, you're being selfish too, because you're being self-aware. You're taking care of you first so that you have something left to give. You have to have something to give in order to give. You can't do it if you're no longer there.
Right. And it's also one of the most selfless acts that you could do as well. Because what I remember from that time, I think I was living off of painkillers at that time. Because that was it. It was such acute pain that was the only way to really sustain. And because of that, I was an awful person. Like everyone around me could feel that. No one liked being around me. You know what I mean? They could tell. I was in a bad place both mentally and physically. And I would have thought at the time, I'm doing the selfless thing. I'm doing the heroic thing by just pushing through. When everyone hated it just as much. They actually wanted me to get it together so that I actually could give something. And I think that's what we miss a lot is we power through. We get it done, but how you get it done also is a part of that.
Who checked you?
Who didn't? Honestly, Dr. Balzora was the first person to check me. She was the first one. That was the first time I actually took it seriously. That was the first time I actually took it seriously. After that, it was my father. Because as situations continued to get worse, he was the one who stepped up and was like, okay, I'm gonna walk this line with you. And every step of the way, we're gonna get, like he's one of those people, we're gonna get this handled. We're gonna get this together. And that's when we spent days just walking hospital floors of him checking mentalities.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And addressing, thank you.
You're welcome.
Addressing the fact that I had this false sense of self-righteousness because I was getting it done. So however I get it done is how I get it done. I can act and behave how I want to because I'm getting it done.
You're welcome.
Yes.
And I didn't realize until after the fact that, no, that does matter.
Do you feel like a lot of self-righteousness wasn't really self-righteous, but more so like, I'm an actor. I can act my way through this because me as a performer, I'm a performer. I'm gonna perform my way through this. I've been performing. I'm gonna continue performing. So they're not gonna see me crashing while people are literally like watching you crash.
Yes, yes. I think part of it was that there was like, part of me believed that nobody could see that nothing was wrong. And I was like, I'm doing a really good job.
Yes.
You were just that good of an actor.
I was like, I'm doing a great job. And then I looked back at it. I've now been able to look back at work that I did in that time, and you can see it.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
I can.
I wasn't
resonate
hiding
with
it
that.
as well as I thought I was.
I love you for that. I'm gonna tell you, I love you so much for that because I would lock myself in the bathroom for hours, and I would come out like, so everything's great, and we've been great, and people were looking at me like, you've been in the bathroom for 4.5 hours.
Yes.
You're not great. And my phone is going off. I'm like, why are you calling me? And my mom would be begging me to go to the doctor, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong. I'm just like bleeding every day, all day long. It's fine. It's gonna be fine.
Right.
It'll stop. Like it's been stopping for the last 15 or so years. It just takes like a month. It'll stop. Just like wait the month, it's fine. Just bathroom time, you know, it'll work itself out. But people were watching me crash, and I was smiling, going outside, but I would go in the bathroom and I would just be sweating, shaking, and my mental health was suffering. My physical was suffering. So I can relate, like,
100%.
and we're coming out, like,
I think
you got this.
everybody who's dealing with some kind of physical limitation of some kind will have the adverse effects mentally.
Yes.
It feel like it just comes with it inherently.
absolutely.
And I think you can probably speak to that more.
Yes.
It's just the especially I think in like, you know, American culture, particularly Black American culture, not being able to be Superman or Superwoman really hits us hard.
Right.
Yeah.
It does.
Oh yeah.
Right.
We feel like failures.
Yeah, that was it. Like, I'm not gonna fail. I just threw up like 2 seconds ago, but I'm fine. Totally fine.
Let's go.
Don't
Shake it off.
We good.
So good.
It's interesting that you say that from a physical ailment part. So I didn't suffer from a digestive issue, but in my sophomore year in college, I blew up my knee playing football. That's what led to my psychotic break. And from there, that landed me in a psychiatric ward. I ended up with the diagnosis of bipolar disorder, but then also just understanding that I didn't have the words for what was going on. But then also, I didn't want that label.
Yeah.
That label terrified me.
Yeah.
Because anything that we hear associated with mental health, only thing we go is crazy.
Yes.
Of course.
We go straight to crazy.
Yeah.
Who wants to be considered crazy?
Yeah.
No.
Even when it's funny, like, oh, you know, Tommy, he's so crazy. He does the craziest things. And it's like, yeah, I don't really want to bring him to the party. He can't come to dinner with my family. He can't come to the formal events. I don't want him sitting at my table. Like, because he's fun when we're at the football games and he's writing all the letters on his chest, but not when it's something that's personal and private and intimate and celebratory, because
There's also this aspect that I know I had, I'm curious to see if you did as well, and Mel, if you as well, was I was concerned about whether or not people would think that I was able to do what I did.
Yes.
Knowing.
yes, they would disqualify me.
Yes.
Let me tell you I can't do it. Don't tell me I can't do it.
Right.
Yes, I was completely afraid of that.
Yeah.
One of the things for me was when I first got out of the hospital, my mom called me every 10 minutes, asked me, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?"
Yes.
Leave me alone.
Yes. But people don't realize how overwhelming that is because they love you and they care. And that's tough because I'm going to jump out there and say, people like all four of us, we also don't tell people we're not fine.
No.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
All of us.
No.
So we're the kind of people, I would say all four, I'm just gonna speak for us now, the team, that we have to be intentional about saying, hey, I've established a group of people that I'm allowing to be my care team. I am informing those people of what my needs are. So thank you for checking on me, but I'm okay right now, and I don't need that right now. I know that you love me. I will be allowing them to share updates with you. So please check on them, because my mental health needs you to back off a little bit so that I can manage what I'm dealing with.
Right.
And that allows me to take control of who's contacting me and allows me to say, leave me alone.
Right.
That takes a lot of courage.
You have to have courage for you. That's selfish.
Yeah.
It goes back to what Tyler was saying.
Yeah.
You have to be selfish.
Are you in a position as a physician when having these conversations with patients to directly recommend or even prescribe attention from a mental health professional?
I think it depends. I broach the topic knowing that I have resources to offer, because you can't, you need to, when you bring that conveation up in the visit, you can't then just leave people hanging. Like,
Right.
you can't
Where-
leave people
where I'm
hanging.
gonna
Like, actually,
You're talking to somebody.
not me, but that's crazy. Yeah, like, that sucks. That's too bad.
You gotta get some help, kid.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a lot of times people won't bring it up. So like we have to, and I think, again, where I work and where I live, there are a lot of resources for a lot of people, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, you have to be comfortable prescribing things, but I think you also have to understand, you're not the expert. Like I want you to see so-and-so because they are the expert in this type. And even specifically for GI illnesses, like there are, psychologists who deal particularly with people with gastrointestinal diseases. Not to say other people can't, but I think that's important. But I do make a point of bringing it up if other people don't.
And I think I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
So even to add to that, for me as a mental health professional, it's also me checking in with my patients, understanding what other things do you have going on.
Right.
What things do you talk about with your PCP, with your primary care
Right.
physician?
Yeah.
What other specialists do you may talk to? Also, can you sign a release for me to talk to them?
Right.
So that, that coordination of care. So me being able to talk to your other doctors to one, see what meds you may be on, what things do they may see in their office visits. Especially if I'm seeing a client every week, I probably got a lot more information about what's going on with them than the actual Dr. B would have. Right, exactly.
I've never even thought of it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's called coordination of care. I ain't even gonna lie, everybody don't do it.
But it's such a in the entertainment industry, right? We have publicists, managers, agents, assistants,
Yes.
all of that. In order for us as the entertainer to be able to do our job effectively, all those people need to talk.
Yep.
They all need to be on the same page, they sharing information on a regular basis. It wasn't until you just brought that up that I went, oh yeah, right, yes, probably all the people who take care of my health
Yes.
Should be talking.
Yeah.
should be, and I think we view mental health as a separate
Thing, yeah.
thing,
Right.
when in actuality it should be integrated. That is,
Well, I think we should probably
Very
take a page
insightful.
out of that book because, I mean, I'll admit that it's hard to do all that stuff on the back end. But
Yeah,
the
it
way
is.
that your publicist talks to, your assistant who talks
Right.
to all those people is the same way that we wish that healthcare would behave. But you're right. I mean, I think a lot of my patients do see a therapist much more often than they see me.
Yes.
And so, even seeing somebody in the office that I haven't seen in a while, you got to know what's going on outside of just like
Right.
the bathroom, because
Right.
if you don't know that stuff, then
Right.
you're not getting the whole picture. You're
and
not
those
getting
things
the
are
whole
usually
person.
connected.
Oh,
That's,
no
Absolutely.
question. No
that's the
question.
first thing every time I've had, anything that sent me to the hospital, one of the first questions is like, what's going on in your life? I can kind of tell you, but if I'm the one currently going through it acutely,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be the best one to ask
Yes.
about this.
Exactly.
Right.
Because
You
I
know,
mean, fatigue, mentally and emotionally.
mentally and fatigue. And then also there is that thing that we were talking about, to appear better. The amount
Yes.
of times I've sat in a doctor's office after the fact, and I think it even happened with you, where it's like, so what's going on? It's great. Well, you're in the ER. So
Everything's not great, right?
But that's what we're taught. That's when
Yeah.
someone asks you how you're doing, you say I'm fine.
Fine.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
I have
That
no
is such
idea.
a
But so the
terrible-
interesting part about it is People do the same thing with me as a therapist. They'll come to therapy.
No. You're definitely
Everything's
gonna
fine.
get away with
Everything's great.
Right.
But wait, you're a therapist. Do you do the same thing?
What?
You're a therapist. Did you do that? I want to make, because patients versus providers. Okay, right, we're on a team. Okay. You're a therapist. You're a doctor. When people, she's going, what is you ask her because we're on a team.
When people ask you, how are you? Do you tell them the truth?
She said, why do people do that? Why do people do that?
You know what? I've attempted. I have attempted the truth, and it never goes well. Okay. It never goes well.
But that's a huge part of that conversation.
Right.
What do you describe well?
You're not out of the woods.
Because the question, the issue is, are they asking that question genuinely? What is the follow-up question to that? It just like it potentially opens look at you, it potentially opens up a can of worms that is difficult to close back up.
We've made a coalition over here.
Right.
Well, we've been forced to answer that question.
Honestly.
So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to answer honestly. Because you also don't want. There's this issue where you almost don't want to disappoint people.
Thank you. It's hard to answer honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
You don't want to disappoint.
You don't want to disappoint people.
And is it disappoint? Because I know that I feel it from the entertainment perspective. Right? We have to seem everything's fine. Everything's under control. The narrative is completely controlled. Right. Everything's great. I'm having a great time because it creates this sense of security for people a lot of times. As a physician and as a mental health professional, I'm sure that there's a bunch of pressure to seem like you have it under control. Because if you don't, then who does?
I'm here seeing you.
So, okay, to answer the initial question, do I answer the question truthfully? It depends on who asks me. Not from the respect of if they're asking genuinely or not. It's more so the aspect of, do I trust this individual with the information that I want to give them?
That's good. That's good.
Also, do I feel safe with telling them what's going on?
Right.
Because let's say if I tell you, Tyler, that today is just not a good day, you're going to be like, well, how can I support you or do these things? I tell my mom, it's not a good day. She could be calling the emergency room because she's been in situations with me where I've had suicidal ideations. I attempted suicide 3 times. Right. So she has this background knowledge of me where she gonna be on high alert. Right. So I gotta monitor that as well. Yeah. So understanding it all in who asked me and how they asked me, when they asked me as well. Right. Are you talking to me? Or are you texting me?
Right.
The form in which
are you FaceTiming me? Or you pop them up at my crib to see how I actually look? Yeah. Because if I look a mess and I'm telling you that I'm fine, you go sit there and be like, come on, bro.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, it really all depends on, it's so many factors that go into that.
It feels like the follow-up question to this, and it's gonna be different from everyone's perspective, and I think that's kind of the point of this kind of conversation is, if you're not, what do you feel like is the best way for somebody to ask you that question?
Good one.
Because I feel like everyone's gonna respond to that differently.
Good.
That's
Answer.
I mean, I think it's important to know we don't have all the answers. I mean, we are human.
Yes.
I just think remembering that is very important.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you, because we do need to remember that. And I think that patients who are people, we don't give our providers enough space to be human. Right. You are human with families, with your own challenges of life, with your own things to manage, and you're still trying to deal with your own life experiences and parents and your own list of responsibilities. So thank you both. I just want to say that now, because we appreciate you giving your time and energy first to serve, but to be vulnerable, because these are vulnerable questions.
Yeah.
And you're answering them. So we appreciate that, because that's service, and that's just giving and lending the truth that we don't all get to hear often from our providers.
And I think even to add another layer to that, and I'm pretty sure you had to take some type of oath when you became a doctor, and in your training and all of those things, they tell us that we don't supposed to self-disclose about certain things.
Right.
You know, and so like, as a professional, I get why they wrote it that way, right?
That makes sense.
But-
It's a safeguard.
But then also, for myself as a black man in America, I know that if you coming to see me as a client, you're not gonna trust me unless you know who you're talking to.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So I gotta give you something to let you know that, yo, I'm in this with you.
Right.
But then also, I guess for me, it helps out the fact that I share my story about
Yes.
what I've
Right.
been through
Right.
and all of those
Right.
things. And I have a lot of clients that come to me and be like, yo, I rock with you just because you persevered through what you've been through. And then I see you as an example of still being able to manage and still being able to thrive. So some of those things, those rules that were written for us,
Yeah.
wasn't written by us.
Right.
So they're not effective
Right.
for us.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
And they're not gonna be effective for every situation either.
Right.
But I think these conversations are important because what it does, and we've talked about this, you were the first, I think, doctor I had an experience with that I could feel we were having a human conversation and not just a medical conversation. There is a way that you speak sometimes to somebody who you feel like there is no, I guess, buffer between the professional and the personal. And we had to talk about a lot of things that were really personal.
Personal, yeah.
We really did. And I think until I was able to see my physician as a person, I wasn't actually able to get the help that I needed.
Right. Right.
So I think having these conversations and making people privy to these conversations help, because we don't see, like, you know, you go to your,
Yes.
people go to their dentist office and it's like, it's somebody who plays in my mouth all day. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have a life after this when you go home. Like, I don't know that, but it
Yes.
reminds them that there is still human connection here.
And it's that inferiority-superiority complex.
Right.
Like, you're
Right.
superior, you're the provider, I'm inferior. So I'm gonna put on a clean shirt when I
Right.
come to see you, make sure there's no holes in my socks, right? We're gonna put on our best underwear, you know, all these things for the provider, and you're gonna fix this stuff.
Yeah, you
It's gonna
sound
be
like
great.
my girl, boy. You don't go to the
Go
doctor
through
with
it
no
all and just,
hole.
Because you have to look like you're fine.
Like,
What if I'm not?
You're sick, but look great, because you got this. So, you know, that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what you
And
do.
those are
That's
the
really
little things that we're taught that we don't even
Yes.
realize to think
Right.
about.
Right.
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 My
Because you
first-
can't go sick to the doctor.
My first instinct when sitting in that ER in, like, I think it was the end of 2016, was to make it look like everything was fine. Everything was
Sick
good.
as a dog.
Death's door. It's like really just like knocking on the door. Trying to just, it's all good. It's fine. And yes, it's bad, but it's also fine. And it took someone looking at me and going, no, it's not. I've seen this x-ray here. It's really bad.
Right.
And that, as a mentality, is what got me to that point.
Yes.
I hadn't analyzed that mentality for a
Right.
long time.
Right.
And that's when you were saying, who checked you? That's what
Yeah.
it took. Another black man who I saw in a position of power with me, somebody
Yes.
who raised me to go, you're not fine, stop.
But say that
It's okay.
It's a coup.
It took another black man.
That was your father.
Yeah. Yeah.
To say you're not good. Look, because it was he had to say that while after you go through the bowel reduction surgery, one of the first things they want to do is they want to get you up and they want to get you walking.
Yes.
So that the anesthesia and all of that doesn't keep your system pretty much just asleep.
Yes.
But they did also just like slice your whole insides up.
Yeah.
So I remember trying to stand up and being like, I got it, I'm good. And him having to really grab, like, you do not. You literally do not have this. You cannot stand
You can't
by
act
yourself.
your way through it. You can't
There's
act
you can't find that next gear. There is no next gear. And that's when I actually heard it. It was a combination of those around me having that conversation. But I think about where I would have been if I was able to hear that earlier. Because I saw the people who were looking over me from a care point of view as people.
Yes.
And not as somebody just telling me.
Yes. Yes. And when I think about you, Tyler, I also think about the industry and so many actors acting are Black men who are acting that have these conditions. And I think about Chadwick, who had cancer, GI, that's our space. And we didn't know, and he was performative and showing up. Like you said, we don't want to be disqualified from an opportunity. We don't want people to know. And I often wondered what kind of support he could have gotten outside, what kind of love. But we get scared
100%.
as Black people first. Just if anyone sees this form, this disease, this illness, I'm now weak. But then if they see it also, I won't get hired. I will be disqualified. I'll get rejected. I won't be able to support my loved ones, my family, or anyone. And so now I'm in another space of mental health issues. So the mental health just continues to snowball.
We had I actually don't even know if I've ever like spoken about this. Chadwick and I had a conversation years prior, had to have been years prior to us both being diagnosed. Had to have been. Because it was right around the time I think it had just been announced that he had gotten Black Panther, and we were at a party, and I had just heard about he was cast, and I was like, "That's great, congrats, all of that." And we were talking about the pressure to put on weight for the superhero stuff, and at the time I was trying to put weight on for something else. And I was just going back, like, is this just the hardest thing that you've ever done in your entire life? Like, does this just feel incredibly impossible? And we were talking about that back and forth and how it was taking, kind of a toll mentally and all that. He had said something that was very interesting. He was like, don't look at the scale. Look for what you want this character to look and feel like, and that's about it. But it wasn't until after he had passed, like, it was like when the news broke, I remember exactly where I was. That conversation popped right back up. And it's incredible to sit there and think about how much mental energy I was expending on trying to look like something. And talking to somebody else who I was like, I feel like you also know what this feels like. I feel like you also, and not knowing that years later,
He was
at some point we would both find out, oh, there's a reason why this is so difficult.
Yes.
There's a reason why this isn't
regular.
This isn't easy. And there is that immense pressure to look fine. There's so many people, especially after I've been, kind of vocal about my story. The industry is full of us. Left and right, people approach me all the time about it, and they just will not come forward because they think they will lose a job. They'll rule out for something.
I think also too, even with Chadwick, the thing about it was, even when he was sick, people picked on him. And people were quick to judge, oh, he looks like he's on something, instead of, granted, we didn't know what was going on with him, but like, the internet made it a joke.
Well, you know why? We're not taught enough about diseases in the Black community. We're not afforded the opportunity because people aren't speaking about their GI illnesses. COCCI and ABGH are so new. We're literally the first organizations to invite Black and brown people to embrace that we have digestive diseases.
That's one of the things that I like, is if you Google my name, right? One of the things that comes up, it'll be, what disease does Tyler J. Williams have? It's one of the first suggestions that you find. I'm like, okay, so people are really looking this up. That's great. It's like, so they can figure out more about it.
Who's his girlfriend?
Those are the other ones. But like, what's wrong with him? But that's really a beautiful thing, and I think it kind of connects to that as well, is this idea that we're in this really interesting place in society where we're having conversations about mental health, but we still have the old patterns that we were raised with.
Yes.
We're talking about moving forward, But we
We
still
cannot
have
get
to
out of that.
backslide all the time, and it's so
Yeah.
interesting to watch. It happen like for me, it happens regularly because I think being in the public eye, you get so many people attempting to reach out and all that, especially if they're particularly like upset about something.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They're really upset about something, you're gonna hear about it.
Yes.
And it's so interesting to watch. What I like to do is always gain context for anything. So I'll go through pages and I'll look and see who are you as a person, try to connect with you on a human being level.
Yes.
And it'll be the same ones who are asking for help mentally for themselves that will weaponize that very thing
Yes, sir.
for somebody else.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I saw so many people, particularly with the situation with Chadwick, talking about particularly mental health and body positivity on their pages weeks after the fact. And we're not connecting those dots. And we have to, I think, as individuals, take responsibility for how we're upholding and perpetuating the stigmas
Yes.
that we're also trying to dismantle at
Yes,
the same
sir.
Yes.
Even when, not even just when we're talking about other people, when we talk about
time.
ourselves.
Ourselves.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
we kill ourselves when it comes down to how we look at ourselves, how do we describe ourselves to other people, the labels that we give ourselves. Oh, I'm dumb, or you make one mistake, I'm so stupid.
Right.
What?
You're speaking that.
Right. Why are you doing that to yourself? What do you think other people around you are going to do?
Right.
Right. Right.
You call yourself stupid, I'm going to call you stupid too.
Exactly. It's really how we're teaching people how to behave with us.
Yes.
There was another aspect of it where I had to address the fact that because of trying to look a certain way, over the course of my 20s, I had developed severe body dysmorphia. I couldn't see and even to this day, I can't see myself physically accurately because I'm aware of what's there. I'm aware of what it looks like to be sick. So no matter how in good of a shape I look in, I look like, do you look small? Do you look
Yes.
sick? Do you look? And that was not just something that came about from what other people had said. It was what I was telling myself.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we don't talk about the fact that a lot of men deal with body image issues.
Definitely
Yes.
I don't know
about that.
one that doesn't.
Right.
Yes.
I really don't. It would be easier to be like, no, he's great. I can get maybe one or two guys who I know
Right.
who that's the case.
Right.
We don't talk about that. And that I think that also plays into how we handle our physical health. Because you're supposed to build your body. When your body says it wants to stop, you got to keep going. You got to plow through it. You have to, and that directly contributes to pain. Your body.
How much
giving
can you endure?
How much can you endure?
But it also contributes to mental health.
Right.
Yeah.
How much can you endure?
Right.
It's both.
Right.
That has to stop being a judge and a gauge, because that would have made our conversations a whole lot easier.
Right.
Because I remember you asked, like, where's the pain at now? And I'll be like, like a 7. And like, it's to the point where I can't stand.
Yeah, it's like you can't talk.
So
you
that's
can't
what-
stand.
that's what
I
I'm
can't
saying.
stand.
Okay.
Right.
It was like,
Yes.
it would
I
take
can
12.
definitely remember.
It was like 12 milligrams of morphine just to back it down.
Sheesh.
Just to back it down. Like a 7.
Like I hear what's coming out of your mouth, but I'm seeing you right now. Like I'm seeing you.
IBD patients, though, our gauge is off.
Off.
Don't
It's just
ever
off.
listen to us.
It's just
I'm just
off.
gonna just speak for the whole IBD community, because I know I'll be like, oh, everything's fine, fine, and
of course.
and my doctor's like, my IBS patients are calling me all day, and you're not saying anything, and you said you've been bleeding every day for 4 months.
Right.
Oh yeah, I told you I had a little bit of blood.
Right. Yeah.
What's a little bit?
Every day and it's
that's-
nonstop for 4 months. I thought I would call you now.
So you as a doctor have to be like a therapist and ask probing questions.
Right. Oh yeah.
I'm like,
for
yeah,
sure,
I thought
for
I'd
sure.
call now because I want to go out of town. This may not be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
true.
there's
And then you get that answer, then you're like, man, I shouldn't have called.
Yes, yes, that's it. That's really what happens.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good question. Do you experience that a lot where you know you have to, because if you don't know, you had that with me for sure, where you have to tell somebody, like, you told me you need surgery. I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Right, yeah,
I don't know what to tell
you're
you.
literally like, he's like, no, I got to do this.
I don't
this.
have
said,
time for that.
Yeah, that's not happening.
You were like,
Off the record, I'm gonna tell you off the record. She does that to me. No, you're not doing that. No.
But what is that line for you? How do you manage that conversation? Because I'm sure it's a conversation you have to have a lot, and it's not an easy conversation to have.
Right.
How do you let somebody know where they're reaching their limit or what their limits are without playing upon that thing that we're talking about, where they feel weak and hopeless and all of that.
That's tough.
I think putting things into context. I think, you know, drawing from other patient experiences, right? And having people hold a mirror up to themselves. Like, I think that that's just, I mean, I find that a lot of my patients who do have IBD really try to downplay everything, but it's not a trying. I think I mean, I don't want to, you know, speak out of turn, but I feel like there's this sense that I've dealt with so much for so long. Like, I can deal with this. Like, this is my day to day. Like, this is my day to day. Like, there are a lot of times where I have to tell people, you need to take sick leave. Like, you cannot do this. Like, like sitting at your desk, under your desk, like, you know, crying, shivering, heating pad on your belly the entire day to the point at which you have like rashes, like all of these sort of things that they've gotten so used to. And you just have to stop, you know? This is not acceptable
It's tough
for you.
for that because I was losing my mobility. I was dragging my leg and still just dragging it to work. And I was like, hey, everybody. And I would drag it, just drag it down the hall with me, hop and drag, hop and drag. You just manage life with it. And parts just start falling off. I think I was going to say there was something wrong when my leg just fell off. Like, it needed to fall off.
Right, to take something like incredibly, like ridiculously dramatic. But those dramatic things were already happening.
That's the thing.
They were already happening.
At what point?
I was just working with it.
Right, and that's a huge, I think, a part of this conversation that obviously when you're looking at it realistically, everyone's not going to be in a position to ask for help.
Yes.
Right, that's something that, or receive it. I've been there, right, where I'm like, I'm fine. You can't tell me that I'm not. However, it takes this kind of like backstop plan that is oftentimes the physician or the mental health professional to stop you in your tracks and say something about that. And I think that's something that we overlook a lot. We see it as, especially, you know, with Black people. I know so many of my family still don't go to the doctor regularly because every time I go to the doctor, I find out something's wrong with me. It's like,
Well,
yes,
You only go
because you go once every 15 years.
something's gonna be wrong at some
Like,
point.
You've been hurting for 8 of those years.
Exactly, like, yes, you finally went. But I think it's part of our work as well to understand that this person's not inflicting a punishment on you. You know what I mean? You're not going to the doctor and they're looking for something to tell you to mess up your day.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
it's attempting to help. And I think had that been more of a mentality for me at the time, I wouldn't have rejected the information as much.
Yeah.
Because initially you hear it as, you're telling me what I can't do.
Right. You're restricting me.
You're restricting me. You're telling me that I can't do something that I want to or need to do. What it actually is you may not even be able to do that at all.
Yeah.
I'm trying to actually give you time to be able to get that done.
Right.
You're just not going to be able to get it done
Right now. Yeah.
I wish my relationship to both physical health and mental health professionals was different in that way. Because same thing happened when sitting down with a therapist for the first time. Yeah, sat down, I'm fine. I'm also an actor, so I can make it seem like I'm fine.
Right.
I can lead somebody on and make them think, I don't know what's going on with you. You seem great. It's like, yeah, at an hour at a time, I can do this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until somebody brought up to me, it's like, oh, this is stemming from like severe anxiety. And you stay in this place of hypervigilance for a long period of time. However, that doesn't stop you. I'm not stopping you by telling you need to stop behaving and moving the way that you are. I'm just letting you know what's going on so you can be better informed. And that changed things for me. That really shifted. Seeing my care specialists as people who truly cared and weren't trying to stop my life, but instead help and enhance it.
Right. And I think so, even with that being said, finding quality care professionals is key too.
Yeah.
Because we know, for one, as a therapist, I know that there are not enough therapists as it is.
Oh,
No.
yeah,
Period.
Definitely not.
And then I'm gonna be one to tell you, as a therapist, there are not a lot of good therapists out there.
Yes.
So, and especially for you, Tyler, somebody that works in the entertainment industry, and some may be in awe by you, you know, instead of being able to address what's really going on, being able to even call you out on your own stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Speak
the
to
hard
that.
part. That's having somebody who will look at you and according to the world, everything is going great. And be able to tell you, no, I see what it looks like, but I actually know what's going on. And you're not as good as you say that you are.
Calling you on your poop. I see poop, Tyler.
It's hard. That's what I'm saying. It takes a unique individual. It takes a long-term relationship to be able to do that. And it wasn't until I had developed those relationships that I understand the value of that, because it's so easy to just write something off and go, you're totally good, everything's going great. And then we see it happen. And it happens in our industry a lot, where you'll see somebody had an issue of self-harm or something, and you're like, well, what happened? Everything
was
seems
fine.
so great.
Yeah.
Somebody wasn't actually opening up the hood and calling them on what was happening in there.
Right. And these are actors, so that's their profession.
Yeah,
that's
we can do it
what
all
they
the
do.
time. We do it all the time.
Yep.
But having that from somebody is vital. Somebody who can actually, and that's why I'm not surprised that your first question was, who checked you? Because that's usually, I'm sure you do a lot of that.
I do a lot of it. I do a lot of it, not even just with my clients, but then also just with my friends and the people I love. Because I want them to realize that I'm here to help, period. And I see you. Because seeing you is not just, oh, you present well in front of me.
Yeah.
Nah, what's really going on?
Right.
Who in your house is pissing you off? Who is causing you too much stress? How's work? Not just from the aspect of just work. Work will be stressful, period.
Right.
But is it causing you to lose sleep?
Right.
Are you eating? Are you drinking water? Are you working out? Those particular questions. So it's not even just the lens of how you're doing, it's when you get specific, and that's how you start to get those real answers from folks to be able to realize if they're doing as good as they say they are.
What, from, I think, both perspectives, from a mental health perspective and from a physician's perspective, are usually the canaries in the coal mine for somebody who's struggling and doesn't want to admit it?
Bruh.
What do you say?
I said, bruh. You want to go first? Or
No, I'll let you go first.
All right, so from a mental health standpoint, and I'm gonna speak, this could be from a personal standpoint.
Okay.
I didn't want to let anybody know that anything was going wrong, but then I lost 25 pounds over a matter of 6 weeks.
Yep.
I was drinking a fifth of tequila every other day. So self-medicating with alcohol. But then I put on this front in front of everybody that everything was good. But then I will buy everybody around me alcohol so that they
can't tell, because we all have a good time.
Right?
I'm drinking with y'all.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Or certain aspects of it, it's not even just those methods of self-medication. It could be binging TV too much. It could be being hypersexual. All of these particular things and then when I'm asking somebody, so for myself, when they would ask me how am I doing, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I just need this to do this. When you start getting into that, that's when you know it's a root issue.
Right.
For me, when I'm asking a certain question, why are you smoking so much? I just needed to get through my day.
Right.
Right.
Or why are you sleeping so much? Man, I don't even know. But I'm gonna be all right. No, like, that's not normal.
Yes.
Like, if your baseline is sleeping 13, 14 hours a day, either something physical is wrong,
Yes. Yes.
or you're depressed,
Right.
or both.
Yeah, both. Right.
So that's when I started to peel back the layers. So like, what's your normal routine like? What's your eating patterns like? Who are you with on a daily basis? What are you doing to take care of yourself?
Right.
What does self-care look like for you? So, but you'll run into a lot of people that say, I don't need this. Or especially for me as a therapist, I get a lot of, when I first started, I get a lot of people that come to me because somebody in their family said they need to go to therapy. Oh, I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah.
Bet, okay.
That's a tough place to start.
A very tough place to start. But I've been doing this for so long, I'm a red-nosed pit bull when I'm in there.
You can smell it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll let you BS me for like the first 2 sessions.
Right.
But then I start going deeper, and then next thing you know, they're in there crying and stuff.
Right. That's real. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess, at some point, someone will give you clues, right? Like, whether they want to or not. But I think for me, as a gastroenterologist, the how are you sleeping, how are you eating, and the weight tend to be the biggest indicators. If you're going to school, how many days are you missing? Work, what is the day like? How do you cope with stress? I think that those are kind of quick and dirty ways to get a sense. Because usually people are not sleeping.
Right.
Right? Whether it's because they're in pain, whether they're,
Using the bathroom all night.
They're using the bathroom all night, whether they have night sweats, or whether they're up with anxiety, because they're anxious about something. Sleeping is a big indicator. And then also, if the eating part, like, are people avoiding eating because every time they eat it brings them pain? Because they don't want to deal with having to go to the bathroom every time they eat?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are like that. So, in the absence of the luxury of time, I think those are kind of like, those are questions I ask every time. Even when people say that they're quote unquote doing well. And we have like data-driven questions that we ask about bowel movements and all that stuff. But like those 2 questions, and do you see somebody on a regular basis for your mental health, I think are like the fastest ways to get a sense of where people are at.
I ask that because what it can start to do with anybody who may be taking this in is you can start to self-evaluate in
Yes.
ways. And I love that both of you brought up the same thing. A lot of the same. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? How's your weight? Because it's physical beings, right?
Yeah.
A lot of symptoms will show up very similarly, but that's one of the first
Yes.
places. And when I think about when I was kind of at my worst, those are the first 2 things to go. Sleep, food, weight.
Yes. And you can't have any kind of physical activity.
None.
You don't have the
You're
energy for it,
exhausted.
the desire for it, or the mental capacity to want to even engage
Right.
in it. I just want to lay down, but sleep isn't even rest. You don't get rest.
You're sleeping way too much and too little at
Yes.
the same time. And
I
I
tried
don't
to
know
explain
how.
that, and you can't even explain
I don't know how to
that.
explain it, but it's both. But those are the things that when you hear from people who aren't even in acute disease,
Yes.
we talk about it all the time. Like the amount of people I run into on a
Yes.
daily basis, whether it be in work or in everyday life, and you sit down and you're like, yeah, I haven't eaten today. It's like, that's not a good thing.
Right.
Yes.
It's not great. That's usually, whether it be from disease or from anything, that's not a good thing.
Right.
Right.
There's people my industry is flooded with people who function on 4 hours of sleep.
Yes.
And they'll tell you that that's the way they get their job
Right.
done. They don't need anything else, that's
Get
fine.
used to it.
And it's like, but that's not, like, from a physiological standpoint, there's no way that's
healthy.
healthy. It's just not, it
It's
doesn't
not-
make
it's not
sense.
possible.
No, it's
Yeah.
not healthy.
But those are the things that we've normalized over time as just being conditions of life. There's no time to eat, or I just can't. And yeah, my weight is going to fluctuate, but it's fine. I don't sleep a lot, but it's fine. And those are signs that something's up. And that's, again, had I known that,
Right.
we could have skipped a whole 4 or 5 years of immense pain. And I think that's what people don't really see.
Yes.
Whether it be from a mental perspective or from a physical perspective. Addressing it early, all you're doing is skipping the really bad part. But if you don't, you're gonna have to spend that time one way or another. That's what really brought me down, and why I appreciate that year for what it was. I needed it to get really bad
Yeah.
in order to stay on
Yes.
top of it.
Yes.
To have a reason never to go there again.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. That resonates so deeply with me because I always say, I needed this to happen for me in order for me to birth COCCI.
That was it.
There would never have been this change for us to have
Yes.
this organization to work with. Dr. B had this experience never happened to me. To work with you, Tyler, to work with you, Rwenshaun, had I never had that experience. So even when people say, I'm sorry, I'm saying, don't be sorry for me.
No.
Be sorry for the people that meet me because they are going to allow me to change this,
Right.
whether they realize it or not.
we wouldn't all be sitting at this table, and that's what I'm hearing is we're all in some way connected to a really bad time.
Yes.
Oh, no question.
Yes.
No question.
Yes.
And needing assistance in some way, or needing to be the assistance in
Yes.
some way. And I think what that does is, one, it allows people to understand that you can be in the worst time of your life,
Yes.
but that's not the end of the conversation.
Yes.
There's something on the other side of it.
Yes.
You're getting this for a reason.
Yes.
But then also can serve as preventative.
Yes.
Yes.
As I don't want to hear from somebody who didn't go through anything.
Yeah. It's the beginning of purpose for me.
That's, you know
It's
what I
the
mean?
beginning of purpose.
I need you to have gone through something to actually, for your words to hold value.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You telling me about the importance of my mental health coming from the context of your background hits a little differently than, like you were saying, like, you know, a family member being like, you should really.
right.
And it's like,
First of all, you're going to take offense to it.
what you talking about?
You need to go.
Yeah, exactly. But it hits differently when you've lived it, you've walked it,
Absolutely.
and all of that. And I think the other side of that as well is the purpose aspect.
Yeah.
It gives you drive. It gives you something to change. And that's what I think is really beautiful about these conversations.
Very well said.
I think it makes you intentional
Yeah.
Yes.
in so many different areas. I know I'm intentional about doing my meditations. I'm intentional about writing in my journal. I'm intentional about those things. I need those things to protect my own mental health. You know, I'm just like y'all. Y'all are intentional about taking your medicine.
Yeah.
You're intentional about, you know, doing those things that you need to take your breaks. Even though we still push through because we serve, right? That's just it. But we also know our limits to the point where, like, okay, now I need to dial this back. Because we know what that bad can
Yes.
look like.
Right, can
Yes. We've learned the power of no. No
Right.
doesn't mean I don't want to help you. I don't want to serve you.
I don't know if Tyler got there yet.
He's been there. Look, this might be me. We're about your own time. I got my own time.
It's an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
You don't ever stop.
Yes, you have to.
Still
You have to
learning,
practice
though.
it. You gotta. It's a practice. It's a practice.
And I know you ain't talking.
Oh gosh. Okay. And this, you got this. But it's a practice. It's like you're constantly learning because I may be more no's this time, and it may be more yeses, or maybe like I'm taking a break from no's because I need to help more. Right. But we're all figuring out the balance. But I would dare to say before these experiences happened, it was a lot more yeses because I couldn't say no.
You don't see it as an option.
No, it's no option. No. And honestly, that may have gotten us to those experiences,
no
to
question.
that space.
No question at all.
So you like learning the value of a no isn't a no to me, it's a yes to me. Yeah. It's a yes to me. And some of those, I need those yeses to me so that the next time I could get to a yes to you.
And I think one of the things that add to that, though, Mel, is like Tyler, like you were saying earlier, we having these teams around us. Like you said, you got your agents, you got your managers, and all. Some of them got to say no for you.
Yes.
Right.
I'll tell you what you said about connecting.
Connecting to care.
Connecting to care. It's gonna change the way. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna get on the phone. I'm gonna restructure everything.
You need to talk to this, doctor. You need to talk to this.
Why aren't you talking?
Because that's like every individual needs support.
Yes.
And we don't really look at our care that way. We don't. Like I'm sitting there going, like, I think about this a lot. Never once have I thought to connect those two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those who do not have the opportunity to sit there and think about those things a lot, what are you going through?
Yeah. But here's kind of the issue. They should have thought about that for you.
In a way, I think that yes, that is part of it.
Because that's what the issue with patient-centered is supposed to be.
Like I said, you got some good ones out
Mm-hmm.
there. You got some not so good ones.
That's the whole foundation of the process of patient-centered.
Right.
patients don't know how to be patients. Like we go into this, I didn't sign up for this. Like I'm not walking up, hey, I'm here to be a patient. I want to have this illness, that illness, and this. Can you give me one of those too? And I'd like to be in the hospital for 3 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Like to have a pain in the butt.
No.
In the gut. We didn't ask for this.
No.
Hey, but, okay, so just to be devil's advocate, just for 1 second. Now, like I said, there are some good ones, some bad, not so good ones. But then also, we are overwhelmed on our end when it comes down to being.
I agree. There's grace. There's grace.
Imagine.
I agree. That's why, I understand him saying, I'm gonna go back, because I've empowered my team too. I've said, hey, can you guys do this? I would really love for you to connect. I need your help here. So I get that on both sides, but that's why I'm putting out there. This is a part of patient centricity. We really need this. And there's some patients that are so sick, they can't
even
think their way to
so
connect. And the mental health expert and the provider, they're hearing this. And there's so much transaction that there isn't the space where we're connecting in transition.
What do you feel like you need by way of support in order to do that more effectively and for that to be more commonplace? For both of you.
Less clients.
I wasn't at a game show. We would be winning.
But that's kind of what these conversations are for, right?
Yeah, no,
We start them here.
Yeah.
Yes.
We may not see this thing actually materialize in the
When
next
are you
5 or
coming to
10
the Hill
years.
with us?
I'll show up when you
Right?
I'll show up.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But I'll say, even what a big part of ABGH is about is creating more Black doctors, right? There's going to be a doctor shortage, but there's already a Black doctor shortage. And then when you think about Black doctors who are gastroenterologists, Black doctors who are gastroenterologists who specialize in IBD, it gets smaller and smaller.
Okay.
But a lot of it is we need more time, and we can't get more time, so we just need more doctors to be able to see patients. We need more physician extenders to see patients and work with us. I just feel like there's not enough of that team network that exists to really provide what we would want to ideally, even when you think about therapists, therapists who take insurance. I know you didn't want to get into it.
Oh, no.
Okay, I wasn't sure. We
about
hadn't mentioned it before, but that is a huge
Hole.
Yes.
It's like this.
Yes.
I'm finding it just being on 2 different coasts. Because depending on where I am, dependent to changes the network that I'm under.
Right.
Yes.
So I can not be in LA, but the person I'm talking to is, but then they're certified to work there, not necessarily.
Right, yes.
That part.
Yep.
There's huge gaps in this.
Yeah, and they lifted it for COVID, right?
Right.
They lifted the ability for telehealth and
put that
access.
right
And then
back
they
in
said,
place.
all right, bye.
Yeah.
We're done.
But then also, you have some insurance companies, they didn't pay the same rates for telehealth
No,
that
they
they
didn't.
did for in person.
Right.
Yes.
And so, but then also these insurance companies, they pay some piss poor rates. I ain't even gonna lie to you.
Right.
And then they have all of this paperwork that you got to do as a clinician. So that's why you got a lot of clinicians that don't take insurance because they don't want to deal with the red tape.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Then they say things like, we get to determine whether you're needed or not.
yeah. Whether it's needed, also whether the service that I provided to you was actual service that you could bill for, and if I don't deem it billable, I'm gonna make you pay it back. So I'm like, why would I even deal with the headache of insurance?
You're gonna sink my practice.
Right.
There's a lot of work that I think needs to be done on even just the side of general health awareness and how these two things, in the same way you should be able to see a primary care doctor just regularly. Just regularly.
Yeah, even that's asking for a lot.
That's asking for a lot.
Right.
We could prevent so much.
Yes.
But we unfortunately
Our culture's not built that way.
We're
Our
not. And
healthcare
that's
system
what
is not
when I think about why did it get so bad? Because it's built to get that.
Yes.
That's when you get
Right,
help. You get help when
exactly.
it's bad.
Yeah, but even for
Yep.
communities of color,
Right.
it's built to get more severe, more challenging, but especially in these subspecialties, in these diseases that they're not readily accessible. The diagnoses are not, the physicians are not in their areas to diagnose them. The delays, it's built for them to suffer.
Right. Wait until you're almost there, and then we'll help.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait till you're on the
Possibly.
edge, and then possibly we'll help.
Yeah.
Do you feel like patients advocating for themselves can help, or at least having the knowledge and the education to advocate for themselves properly can help get around that?
Oh, yeah.
No question.
1,000%.
Shut up.
He's like, okay, you guys any questions here?
One question. She was cheerleading the whole time.
My team wins. Hey, we're not keeping score, but we win.
Gracious.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about patient activation, right? There's a lot of talk about patient activation. A lot of that is people knowing about their disease, knowing about their meds, knowing about their diagnosis, knowing all the things, right? That make the visit smoother, that allow you to be more efficient during a visit, and ultimately that more people who are activated are in remission. But, I mean, you see it with people who are members, like where they, their journey.
Yes.
A lot of that information isn't given to them, right? They're not exposed to that information at all. And that's why having you here talking about this so candidly, and why people in your industry come up to you when they're, not divulging those things themselves is so incredibly huge. Like, so incredibly important. When you think about who people rely on and trust, I mean, there's physicians, there's family, but people who are celebrities, people in the public eye, that's a huge percentage of where that trust comes from and where that awareness comes from. And you see campaigns that flourish that have to do with health.
Right.
And a lot of times it's because celebrities were open about things.
I definitely found that after our last conversation, I got a call from my publicist and was like, "Good Morning America wants to do a whole piece on the worst time of your life." And I was like,
What do you think?
cool, I guess. But I think so many.
But it's important to think about it like
It
that
was.
because people don't think about it like
gosh.
that. That is.
That's how it was proposed to me. Yeah, that's how it was. Remember, the worst year of your life? They won't talk about it. But I was shocked that they were even interested.
Right.
And then to see the response that it got, I was like, oh, okay. So there's a connection here, right? People are going through things and they're dealing with it silently because that's how they feel like they have to.
Right.
It takes someone getting the conversation started.
Yes.
Communication is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
The
And
vulnerability.
That's it's okay. It's good. It's fine not to be fine. It's fine to say that you're not. I'd still struggle with it today, but it is.
It makes you reachable, though.
It does.
It's like, wow, he is human. Because you're not reachable as this everybody hates Chris,
No.
right? As
That's not.
on the other show.
Right.
You're not you're superstar.
Right.
You are, Tyler. You are, and that's great. You've won these awards. You're seen at the award shows. All of these things. You're in the men's health. Right? we see you. So it's all of those. You're rapping. We heard the lyrics. Okay, all right.
But all of that is intentional in the sense of
Yes.
I'm going to give you every piece of the story.
Yes.
That way you can see a full human being.
Yes.
Right? Because what happens a lot of times is if we just talk about the diagnosis and the struggle, you become the disease.
Right.
One of the things that I had to learn recently with a friend of mine, actually, is they also have bipolar disorder. And one of the ways we talk about it is we'll say they are bipolar, rather that's what they have.
They live with bipolar
They live
disorder.
with bipolar disorder. And that's, I didn't realize it until this whole kind of publicity thing about 2017 for me and all that, where I was like, okay, but that's not the end of the conversation.
Right.
The disease is not the end of the conversation. That's a piece of being human. Then there's the things that you see on TV. Then there's how I live personally.
Yes.
There's all of that. So it doesn't, the stigma being deconstructed comes in the fullness of a human person. We need to continue that conversation because it can, so many times will enable this disability bias.
Yes.
that's what was so important. I think particularly about the men's health piece that we wanted to make clear is like in the midst of having this, there is still strength. The strength does not come from ignoring it or saying that it doesn't exist.
Right.
The strength comes in actually addressing it.
Yes.
That's part of it.
You cannot heal from what you do not reveal.
No, but I think I'm still learning it to this day.
Yeah.
That when you see somebody or you hear about something that they live with, that is not the totality of who they
Yes.
are.
Yes.
That is a small piece of who
Yes.
they are.
It's a slither.
Yes. And that's something I'm still actively learning. But as I learn, I'll share. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When there are people who know more than I do, point them in that direction. It's important. Hopefully it frees some people up and they don't have to go through the same thing. Hopefully. And hopefully when we look down the road 5, 10, 15 years from now, in the same way we have our conversations about mental health have changed significantly in the last 15 years. There's stuff that we weren't even talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, look, yes.
And our providers can have access to better relationships with these insurance companies because people need mental health, just like you said, like they need general primary care. Like this should be managed the same way because people are suffering. One of the programs that we support is our community conversations. And we go to these college students, and that is a space as we're teaching them about IBD. You know, you mentioned like the knowledge. We're teaching them about IBD. We are getting a lot of students that are, as they're learning and they're being exposed to just GI diseases, they're coming up and they're telling us about what they're dealing with, about food, nutrition, all these parts of their lives, but their mental health is in shambles. Shambles. And faculty is thinking they're just depressed. I'm like, there's layers to this.
there's
It's
so
not
many.
just
There's so many.
depressed.
Yeah.
So many layers, and they need help. And schools are not equipped. And I won't even say like bash the schools, they're not equipped. They can't.
No.
They're overloaded. But the insurance companies need to change how they're supporting the providers. Because good providers, the great providers, the ones that are great and still willing to say, I'm going to work with insurance companies,
Right.
they're being shortchanged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting time right now because I feel like we're becoming aware of what we need. We just don't know how to get there.
That's
yet.
true. It's
Who
true.
will allow us to get there?
Yes. Yes. Ooh, that's good. Who
And
will allow us
understanding
there?
that we can all kind of come together from patients to patient advocates
Yes.
to mental health providers to physicians and have one conversation to understand that we're all actually on the same page. We all want the same thing. I didn't hear us disagree really about anything.
No, not at all.
We're all asking for the same thing.
Right.
Then we can advocate for ourselves and each other better.
Yes.
We can realize that I'm not here to fight you. You want what I want. I'm not here to, you're not my enemy. You're not here to tell me that I'm weak. You're here to actually make me strong.
Yes.
You're here to support me in
Stronger.
that strength. Stronger. We're not here to combat one another, but to assist. And we, hopefully, as we've seen happen before, we can continue to have the conversation. But I think getting everybody in the same space as human beings, not as doctors, not as therapists,
Yes.
not as patients, but as human beings to have that conversation is a key part of that.
To increase the better quality of life for all of us.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And because this is such a unique community, it's so important that they understand that this community needs providers at the very beginning because we are dealing with race-based trauma at the entry of the healthcare system, at the entry point. You know, it's not something that's an aside, but par for the course of navigating in the healthcare system.
There's a reason why, and I think that's also validating that. There's a reason why, and I think I can say this pretty concretely. Most Black people are either afraid of going to the doctor or a mental health
Yes.
professional, or know somebody in their family who is.
Yes.
Like, I don't
Yes.
know
I
any
think you
of us
can
who
say that
don't,
concretely.
Yes.
who
Yeah.
don't
Yes.
have that experience.
Yes. Right.
There's a reason
Yes.
why that's there. That can be validated.
Yes.
That's fine. I think a lot of
Yes,
times we
it's a
just go, well,
story.
why don't you just go?
Yeah.
validate why it's there in the first place.
They have an experience.
But then show them another option.
Yes.
Show them another path. And I think what I've been finding in my work recently with a lot of different career paths, from physicians to teachers to any place where you don't see Black people regularly, we need to be invited to that profession.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know a lot of Black mental health providers, because when was that an option?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Growing up, well, that's not something I thought I could
pitched to
be.
you.
It wasn't pitched to me at
Right.
all. Definitely not a GI. Like
Yeah.
that, I didn't even know what that meant.
Why not G.I. Joe?
I was like, oh, what? Okay, cool.
Right.
But that's as we invite people to those conversations, and I think the work that you're doing is really important in that way as well.
It is. We
You're
need
opening the
you.
door to that conversation.
Yeah.
That's how, maybe right now, because I know it takes a lot of school, but right now, we can't handle it acutely, but down the road, we can start making movements and strides, and hopefully this conversation can do that as well. It can invite people into these spaces, not just to talk about what they're going through, but to show up and fill these gaps that we're talking about.
Right.
Absolutely.
Especially, I don't know, young Black male mental health providers?
Yeah.
Few and far
very,
between.
very few.
Yeah.
2? You
Like you just said.
It's like you being one of the 2. Hopefully we can change
That's
that.
pretty funny. This has been great.
Yeah, it really has. I'm so glad this is in person, and
That the patients won.
even though there's some teams here. But yeah, I mean, being out of the office, being out of the virtual space, I think allowed for, very rich conversation. And I think what you say is so true, and of course Mel can speak to this too, and a lot of other patient advocates who have gone through some really terrible things, is that as difficult as it is to talk about it, it's really because you don't want anyone else to go through what
Absolutely.
you went through. That's just what I hear every time I ask people, how do you get the strength to do this despite everything?
Yes.
So thank you both for bringing all that information to the table and being so vulnerable. It's really a gift to so many people who you will probably never hear from, quite honestly, just watching this sort of thing.
And thank you
Thank
also
you.
for the work that you both do. I say this all the time. I will always pick up my phone for you, because I probably would not be here if it wasn't for one conversation that we had. And I wish that relationship and that sense of gratitude for everybody in regards to their physical health and their mental as well. Yeah.
This is great.
It's great. Food is great. All of that.
No, definitely.
So that's really good.
Definitely.
Look, this has been a wonderful Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week. Tyler, we're going to have to pull you in a little more. So this won't be the end of you. I don't know how we're going to do it. You're so busy.
But I'll find time.
And I'd love this connection here between the two of you. Thank you, Rwenshaun, for your willingness to serve our community and participate in this Crohn's and Colitis Awareness Week discussion on IBD and mental health and the intersectionality of men's health as well.
Yes.
Dr. B, my amazing board member and partner. Thank you, my sister and friend. I'm grateful for
Yes,
you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. What's cooking? COCCI's table, coming in hot. I don't know what you want me to say, Matt, but I'm wrapping it up. We out.
Running through it with the young influence, adolescent presence, I'm succumbing to it. I've been giving yeses when I shouldn't do it. I complete ejected, but the moves elusive, and I'm barely moving, but I'm still gon' boost 'em. I can't work on winnings when I know you're losing, so I work the winnings and they throw the deuces. Guess I had to pivot, shooting the bazookas for the back.